we got a lot to talk about when it comes to that. Kail did address those kinds of like comments that people made about her. Hi, Lynn. Good morning. About her using her dad's passing for content and all this stuff. And so she kind of like glazed over the like monetization of his deathbed stuff, and just said that like, hey, like she has genuine feelings and this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, but why don't you address the fact that you're putting all this on Patreon and all this like weird stuff? So if you listen to her this week's episode of Barely Famous, I think it would be interesting to you guys. Her and Kristen, they are promoting it heavy, like to go buy the thing on Patreon, go watch the tears, watch how sad and distressed she was. Like they are really marketing this thing to the best of their ability. Like that is what people are criticizing Kail, not really, the fact that you went to go see somebody who was a deadbeat to you, but I digress. Anyway, since we're over here on the Kail subject, why don't we go ahead and bring her up then, okay? So Kail Lowry, like I said earlier, she announced on this week's episode or today's episode of the Barely Famous podcast that her father, Raymond, had passed away. And it was a really emotional episode for her, of course, right? Like her emotions surrounding her father in general, and then his passing are very complex because she's only met that guy twice in her entire life, and she's in her 30s. And, the second time she met him, he was on his deathbed, right? And so it's kind of like missing and grieving something that you never really had, like something that you could have, should have had, like all this stuff. And now the old story you were told about this guy just isn't true, or he claims isn't true, right? Because that's the thing about it. Kail is taking everything that her father said to her at face value, right? So her father said, I fought so hard for you. I came all the way to Pennsylvania to kidnap you because I wanted to raise you myself, like all this type of stuff. And she's kind of just like, eating it up. But I'm like, girl, are you sure that's true? Because isn't that what men typically say? Like, we see dead men say this all the time, right? It's always, well, I wanted to be in my child's life, but their mother was keeping me away from them, like all this other stuff. So I personally do not, believe what her father is saying, but that's what she wants to believe really badly. So she says that she got the news that her dad had died when her aunt called her while she was wrapping up a vacation with Isaac and Lincoln. They were getting, all packed up in the car and everything when the call came. And she was quite upset about the news, of course, right? Especially because she thought that she would be able to visit her father again at least one more time before he passed away. And obviously now that is never going to happen. And, I feel like I really understand where she's coming from here because, again, when she went into the deathbed confessions thing that she wanted to like shoot, she was angry. She thought that her dad did her wrong, never tried to see her, left her, with an alcoholic, all this stuff, right? However, she was told by this man that he tried everything. He put up all his money. He was driving across the country for her, all that stuff. So it felt like she had softened towards him and wanted to see him again under a different relationship, right? A dynamic or a relationship in which she's like seeing him as, somebody who tried so hard, somebody she actually likes and doesn't like hate anymore, right? And speaking of hatred, Kail did say in this episode that she hates her mom now more than ever because, again, she really does believe her father's tale of events, which is that he fought really hard to go and get her. And so she hates that her mom just never allowed for her father to be in her life. And she says that she doesn't really want to have like a sit down with her mom the way that she had one with her father, because she already knew her mom and she knows her mom ain't ish. And she says if she were to see her mom, it would just be to curse her out at this point, right? Which I find to be, understandable if what Raymond's saying is true. However, I'm not sure that I believe her father. I think it's very common for, deadbeat dads to say that they could have been these great dads. It's kind of like men being like, oh, I could have made it in the NFL. I could have made it in the whatever the soccer people do. I could have made it, like I had this knee injury or this or that. Like it's just always some kind of an excuse and never any kind of real action, right? And so Kail says that the way that her father was kept away from her, this just further drives her thing. She says, I have never been in the business of keeping my kids away from their fathers. And now look, it happened to my own dad. I'm like, girl, first of all, I'm pretty sure your dad was a willing deadbeat. Second of all, we all saw you grow up on 16 and Pregnant and on Teen Mom 2. We saw the way that you behaved with your various baby daddies, right? So with Joe, did you not move from Pennsylvania to Delaware without even getting a sign off from the judge? She didn't wait for that to do that, right? And then because she wanted to replace Joe as the father of Isaac with Javi. And then afterwards, Joe moved to Delaware or Dover or whatever. And he moved really close so that it would be easier to see his son more often. And what did Kail say? That's too close. I don't want you living near me. And she upped and moved again. Right. And so Javi has also been complaining about her trying to minimize his time with his son as much as possible and all this other stuff. I think the only person that she truly has not tried to keep away from her kids is probably that last guy, Elijah. Like that's somebody where she's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to let this guy do whatever, have whatever amount of time. But even with Joe and whatnot, she did not want for him to get the 50-50 and whatnot. Right. Just saying. So let's take a look at what it is that some of y'all had to say about all of this. Okay. I'm heading back in the live chat, and don't forget, Playback Pasta, you can leave a comment in the comment section and I will get to you as well. Hey, Jaleesa says, I'm not mad at Kail for this, to be honest. Her dad is a POS, and I can agree. But here's the thing now, she's idolizing him. She thinks that this guy is actually not a POS. This guy is an amazing guy who was kept away from me by my evil mom. This sort of a thing is the new narrative that she's currently running with concerning Roadkill Ray. Bibi says, playing devil's advocate, the man claimed the mom denied visitation or whatnot. Let's remember what Kail does to her baby daddies. Perhaps he may have been saying the truth. Maybe. And isn't that funny, Bibi? Because in this episode, you'll hear Kail claim that she's not in the business of keeping her kids away from their fathers. Meanwhile, we all can say otherwise, right? Based off of what we've seen and heard about her on the show and in her podcast. Hey, Monique, what a little cutie on your photo. Listen, y'all know I'm terrified of cats, but this one is really, really cute. Even though it's giving me like goosebumps from my like little phobia. Laura says her dad may be a POS. It's just disrespectful to do that though. She could have said bye. Listen, money's got to be made. One thing about Kail, she's going to make her money. In fact, they're joking about the Dead Dads Club, and they want to turn it into some kind of like, community, a monetized community, of course, right? And then she also says, oh, like now that I'm talking about death and all that stuff so much, like I feel like I should start a business in the death realm, like killer funeral services, killer death services, all this type of stuff, right? Everything in Kail's mind is money, 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 money. Right. And I agree, Tamara. Typical. I can't believe she fell for that hook, line, and sinker. Ramster says, though I find it very weird, people filming themselves while crying. Wonder if I cry. Filming myself is the last thing I could think of. And that's here. Let me put up the photos, because that's the thing that made me kind of, not giggle, but just go, that's really, really strange, is the way in which you see her constantly check herself out in the camera to make sure that she's within view, and all her tears and everything. Right. People are so fast. This is this weird, new kind of like generation or just, way of life that is still just so strange at the same time. Laura says she could have said bye, and when stuff looked different, now feels bad. Gwen says, yeah, I wonder the same about Kail's dad. It was easier for me. My dad's story actually made sense, and my mom didn't make any sense at all. And then Laura says, I think her mom and dad are the peas in the pod, and she's never actually known the full story until she talks to both. I don't think either person would be very believable. Bibi says, oof, Kail. She hates the mother for doing what she has done for Joe, Hobby, and Chris. All right. Isn't it interesting? Bone. You're not bonehead, are you? Hang on. Let me look you in your eyes. You're not bonehead, are you? Kail's weirdo friend. Just checking. I'm just joking. Do you guys remember Kail's weirdo friend? Is she friends with her? Are you still friends with her, Ron? Yes or no? Do you guys remember Bone? She was so weird. And then like there was a podcast episode where they had her farting with her vagina in the mic. Like, listen, if that's you, Bone, I'm sorry for putting you on blast like that, but I know it's not you. By the way, I really like your photo. That sunset is absolutely gorgeous. Bone says if her dad really wanted custody, he would have taken Boozy to court, right? And then apparently the dad claimed he took her to court and all this stuff. I'm like, and then the judge said he could have no contact. I'm like, why would a judge take a perfectly normal, nice, dedicated father and say you cannot have any contact with your child at all, right? I don't know. His story just doesn't make any kind of sense. And, even the kidnapping thing, because apparently he crossed state lines to get to her and bring her back to Texas. And then, like, I think Susie reported it as a kidnapping and all that stuff. I think that's where he got like the no, you're not allowed thing. But I don't know. The whole thing is just so messy and I'm not sure. Julissa says her making excuses for him right now is probably part of the grieving process. I've seen it many times. All right. I feel like there's that whole thing, and I don't know. It would suck if he were lying to her and he did this to her right before passing, leaving her with like this new like set of like delusion or something like that. I really would hate that for her. It feels very, very confusing. And yes, there was another J name. Ali, his name was Jordan. And look, you got his name. Yep, that was him. He dodged a bullet. How's he doing these days, I wonder? KK says, I couldn't agree more about Kail's dad. Did he ask? Exactly. He asked for $20 when his teenage pregnant or already delivered daughter went to visit him. Like, no shame at all, right? Feels like she had two parents who weren't willing or capable of being the parents she needed. If he wanted to, he would. I agree. And like, why go all the way back to Texas then? And never, anyway, like the whole thing, I'm sorry. It's giving BS to me personally. You can judge the fact that he left her daughter with a drunk, ice cold woman, period. Exactly. So why is she like so quick to forgive him now? Just because he said that the mom's lying,